Today, I have the pleasure of talking with one of our favorite Ivy alumni, Akarsh. Akarsh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Akarsh. I graduated from the MSc Digital Management program in 2022, and I've been working at Deloitte ever since as a digital marketing and commerce consultant. I'm happy to speak with all of you.
We are so delighted that you could join us. So, truly, thank you for taking the time today. My first question for you is how you navigated the job market as an international graduate. What was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the job market has always been evolving ever since last decade, for that matter. And I think embracing change, like constantly updating your resume and LinkedIn and having a growth mindset helps a lot. For me, spending 30 minutes a day just on career advancement, for example, improving my resume, networking, or learning new skills was a game changer.
Okay. And what kind of cultural challenges did you face in your recruitment journey?
Yeah, I think the cultural differences are definitely very prominent. I found that the networking norms here are very different from how it used to be where I used to study before. For instance, in France or in Singapore, we used to have events organized and you formally meet people, you exchange business cards and things like that. And it was very formal, like I would say dated for now. I think today's networking is completely different. There's expectation of being proactive. There's an expectation to meet people in different instances at different places, and I've heard some of the most unique ways of meeting people as well. Some folks go to like events that are focused on like case competitions, for instance, when you're in school, and then all the way up to like being in like right now in the workforce. I attended an event on how is it like to be a queer person in technology, so like there are events like that also happening in the city. So there's all sorts of ways to meet people, and there's definitely the cultural differences there. More so in terms of like job applications. For instance, back in the day when I was in undergrad, my resume used to have a photo on it, and it had like a lot of creative things going on here and there, just to show that, oh, Akarsh is a creative brand expert or a marketing expert. But here, I think although there's like all kinds of companies where they accept different kinds of resumes. The standard is that you're very straight to the point. It's one page. Everything is listed in the context action result format, and all this information. I think you can get it from the career management at Ivy and Western, but it's important to follow that kind of uh, set guidelines as that really helps in preparing a resume that's more tailored to the Canadian audience. And this really helped. Although I was very resistant to make this change because I really liked what I used to have, making that change helped me get a exponential amount of responses for my applications back in the day.
Thank you for mentioning that, Akarsh. I really like your point too of, there are certain things you want to share about yourself or certain approaches you want to take. And it's not that you can't share yourself in that way or take that approach at some point. It's just
Yeah,
sometimes where how to do it. So I know just from our interactions, I mean, your kind of creativity and your personality comes through so wonderfully as we are in conversation. It
yeah,
just might not be a photo on a resume or certain things there. It comes through at those other points in recruitment. And
yeah.
again, you learned by doing and are able to share that with our students up front. So I really appreciate that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only point I wanted to make there was your resume or your cover letters are the first two things that people would see when you're applying for a job.
Mm.
So it's also important to like make sure that that is like a golden standard what you're setting for yourself, because once you pass that stage, then everything else definitely depends on the kind of personality you are, the kind of technical appetite you have, and so on and so forth. So it all sometimes comes down to that.
Okay. Thank you for headlining that there. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, what strategies helped you build a professional network when you were new to Canada or a new graduate in Canada?
Yeah, actually, I must say, networking, I did not understand the value of it until I arrived to Canada. First few months at IB, I'm just going back to 2021 when I arrived. I was like, oh my God, we are finally having in-person classes and things like that. But I noticed that everybody was always talking about networking, and they're like, oh, I sent out this Coffee Connect, and even the word Coffee Connect was so new to me. Like I was like, what is Coffee Connect? Like I don't know what that is. But later on, speaking with the career management folks, the professors, and some friendly peers, I understood that that's like the numero uno in Canada. Like you need to do that no matter what, in order to just expand your network. There are some strategies that I used, which I learned over time, and I'm happy to share that. So it's almost like you're going from looking within to taking it to the next level, looking within your close peers, and then on a macro level. So when you're looking within, I would say look within your program, look within your cohort. There's definitely people who've been in this country for like so many years. They know a lot of companies here, so try to get some kind of a learning. Okay, these are the different kind of consumer goods companies. These are the different kinds of telecom companies in Canada, so on and so forth. So just understanding the landscape would come from like your peers around you, and then look within your program, look within the faculty you're in. Like Ivy has so many different programs. We have the MBA, you have the HBA, you have now there's so many other programs like the MMA and things like that. So connect with them, just grab a coffee. I used to go to campus almost every other day. So I used to just like meet someone and like go for a walk in the quadrangle and things like that. So things like that definitely play a role in building and fostering connections. I still get messages from some of the folks I used to meet back in the day, and I've seen that being useful. Then there's also the Western University. It's so huge, even though like there might be different faculties from business, there's always some kind of an overlap that you might never know. And I made sure that I attend a lot of those events that were hosted in Western as well, just so that I could get the best out of whatever I've invested in terms of my education. So there's that. And then I also look back at my life. I did have a kind of a fantabulous life. Back in the day, I traveled a lot. I lived in different countries, different companies. I leaned on some of the peers or some of the seeds that I sowed there before leaving. I leaned on to that, and I asked my alumni from my previous education at ESSEC Business School if they know people in Canada who are settled here. And turns out there's like thousands of people who moved here to Montreal, to Toronto, to Vancouver. And I immediately reached out to them, then attended some of the events that they do within smaller groups and things like that. And that helped me connect to quite a lot of people, actually. That played a very critical role in my job applications, because you were able to connect to peers from your previous educational backgrounds, and they kind of have some sort of like an endorsement towards you as well, because we both studied in the same school. I know that this person is capable, so on and so forth. And then the third thing I also did, I know these are like a lot of different techniques, but you need to use a
This is
lot of
great.
different techniques.
This is great.
Um, I did a lot of internships back in the day. I had really good connections with some colleagues at my level who were interns as well, but also at the senior level. And I reached out to them saying that, hey, just a quick update. I moved to Canada. It's a cold country, but I would like to make some warm connections. Do you know somebody in the
Amazing.
city that I could meet and things like that? So that helped too. So just things like that have been very strategic, sorry, in meeting people. Um, there's so much, and like I'm such an outgoing person, so sometimes this industry does demand me to be a like outgoing and like networking, and being a client-facing person. So I went to a lot of events as well, like niche events that I mentioned before, like the Queer Tech. There's Ascend Canada that was connecting like minority groups or like intersectional groups to meet for and discuss real topics about business, about financial industry, things like that. So this was all new to me, and I've seen that if you just tap on the right things, there are a bundle of opportunities. So looking beyond just the conventional alumni meetups or like things like that, there's so much more within the city. And last but not the least, I spent a year and a half in Toronto. The city is so small that you'll often meet the same people again and again, especially if it's with tied interests. If it's the same interest, you often meet the same people, and that also helps in building a connection, and getting an endorsement from them. And all these basically really help in building your profile in this country.
I just want to double check because you said you mentioned spending that year and a half in Toronto.
Mhm.
And just you did mean Toronto and not London?
I lived in London during my academic
London.
studies as
But
well.
then, but also
Yeah.
felt like Toronto still had that small town vibe and like you're going to run into people and they'll remember you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to be very honest, I need to add a point there. Even in London, there was so much going on. People just need to see outside the university. I went to so many events that were organized within London too. There were like back in the day, there were UX design meetups. I was into UX design back in the
Yeah.
day. So I went to a UX design meetup. There was something about learning and development for like software technologies and things like that. So there was so much going on. And often some of these events are paid or free, but if you're able to put in an investment to that, it always pays off. It always connects you with someone um, that you might realize that that value of the event might come out later in the future. So it all depends on, though those experiences from smaller cities do carry on to bigger cities.
No, I'm really glad you mentioned that point because I think sometimes we have students from smaller areas or even just look at Toronto as intimidating and think, well, I'm never going to get that kind of connection. Who would remember me? Toronto's so huge.
Yeah,
So to hear that reassurance of even in a big city, you can make those important connections and be memorable, be remembered in both London and
yeah,
beyond. Yeah.
yeah.
And and so my next question for you, Akarsh, how has your international background influenced your career path?
Yeah, absolutely. Over the last 5 years, I've lived in four different continents, five different countries, and all this the peripatetic educational background that I had, it definitely played a big role in my story. Everything led to something else, and it was kind of like a domino effect that I had in my life. Um, for example, studying in Singapore gave me an experience of living in a concrete jungle like Toronto. Even though this was 5 years ago when I was studying in Singapore, I was living in a big city, a fast-paced city, and a lot of focus on technology, financial industry, and things like that. So I learned a rigor about how do you follow like a set structure, kind of like living in a big city like Toronto or New York would have, right? So I got that kind of an experience in Singapore. I've developed that rigidity and like also like developing like a strong skill in presenting yourself in front of people. I think that's something that came very early on for me. Then, when I went to France to continue my undergraduate studies, I developed not just a strong passion for creativity, fashion, or innovative things. I think France is definitely a country where innovation is quite up to the mark or up more beyond like the other countries in the world, and definitely it would help me in thinking out of the box. And not just that, it also helped me in learning a new language altogether. I learned French there from the scratch. I didn't know a word in French. I wouldn't understand whatever people used to say in the grocery store when I used to purchase. And kind of having that situation where I had no choice but to learn really played a big role in not just learning that language to a professional competency, but at the same time, when I arrived to Canada, I realized that, oh, this country is bilingual. My skill is definitely going to be very resourceful to the companies, and it is like in at Deloitte, I've often engaged in bilingual projects, and me knowing French played a key role in um, getting opportunities, not just within Deloitte, but also before this. Like I was
Yeah.
helping in bilingual marketing as well for different companies while I was studying at IB. So there's also that, like a skill that I developed in my educational background back in the day. So I
Yeah.
would say that these two. And last but not the least, I think all throughout this time in different countries, I made sure that I put my foot in the door and get all whatever opportunities I can get. And I think it's important to understand that not every opportunity has to be a big company that you're
Mm,
working for so that you have like a big list of brands under your belt. I think that's an approach that I feel that a lot of students do end up taking because of the peer pressure around them and things like that. I started small. I worked in a company of four people on a coffee table in some cafe, and that company became 40 people in 8 months. It was a startup, and it became a scale up. But that experience made me learn how to understand working in small companies, owning your responsibility. Like if I did not do marketing, nobody else did because there was
hmm
no other second substitute for me. I learned responsibility and I learned how to adapt to fast growth. And eventually, I went up the ladder that way. I started small, then I went to a medium-sized firm, then I went to a bigger firm, now I'm in a multinational conglomerate. So it all depends on how you see it. And pigeonholing is definitely not something I recommend. I would recommend starting small and sometimes provide voluntary help 1 day a week to some small organization, and that will help you get your foot in the door.
Amazing. Yeah. And like you say, I mean, some students will end up at big names right away, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But it sounds like there is really this underappreciation for the quality and the quantity that you will learn at a smaller
Absolutely.
organization, especially a startup.
Yeah.
Okay. And before our time comes to a close, Akarsh, is there any additional advice you want to share with our current or future international students?
Yeah, definitely a lot of advices to share. But some key things that I will definitely share are stay focused and persistent. It's almost like when, when in a horse race, you see all the horses with blinders. Sometimes it's okay to remove those blinders, but sometimes there's also, I would see a benefit in putting it on. I think oftentimes when you're in school, you get so pressurized by everything around you and overwhelmed as well. Sometimes putting those blinds on helps you kind of alleviate that pressure and just focus on yourself, and that helped me. I was
Mm,
focusing an entire summer just on myself, on my career aspirations and growth, and that played a key role in making sure that whatever I'm delivering is kind of like a gold standard, or giving it on a gold plate for that matter. So that's number one. And then use the available support that you have. Lean on the peers at your career management office. They're amazing. I went to them almost a monthly or bi-weekly just to get my resumes and cover letters checked, just to do some mock interviews. I used some technological tools that they gave me. I leaned on some peers who were as proactive as me, just to practice with them, and like almost like helping each other out. I think doing that and that kind of helping each other out attitude really helps. And lastly, be flexible. Like I mentioned before, don't pigeonhole on one company or one job type. Sometimes taking an entry role or a volunteering role always helps, and it leads to better opportunities. And there's nothing wrong about that. So these are my three top advices.
okay. And I know I said that was my last question, but I do have a small follow-up. Because Akarsh, I feel that career management is great. I think you think we're okay. But it's different. What made career management kind of approachable or comfortable for you to have those conversations? Because it can be tough to make an appointment or it can be tough to walk through that door. What helped you walk through the door and have those conversations?
I think my commitment towards my career, I think that was numero uno for me. I was very determined that I need a job by so and so date. And to
Mm,
achieve that, I kind of made like a backtrack plan. If I need to get a job in 6 months, what do I need to do now? And in the first 2 months, it involved me to get the required expertise that I don't have. I did not know the Canadian job landscape. I did not understand the way things work here. I did not understand the case interviews, for instance, in my industry. All that kind of exposure I got by speaking to the career management, and I just went and knocked at the door, and I was like, "Hey, can I meet someone?" They're like, "No, you need to take an appointment." I was like, "Okay, can you get me an
mm.
appointment?" And that's how it just led to me meeting some folks there in the career office, and definitely they're amazing people. They definitely trained me in things that I did not know. And interviewing is definitely has changed a lot, and it changes every day. And I think the folks in the career management team are definitely up to speed with that. So you could get a lot of insights from them on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you, Akarsh. I'm glad you knocked on the door and while sometimes during quiet times we can find appointments in the moment, I appreciate that you were patient and willing to go online and make that appointment. We're so glad to have you, and thank you so much for sharing your story and your wonderful wisdom with our international students. We really appreciate you.
No, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.